Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dave Sullivan. I'm the Vice President of Professional Services here at Shipware. Here to talk to you today about, the top 5 negotiating mistakes made by shippers. We're calling this the top 5 for the purposes of this conversation. They're really sort of 5 mistakes that I've identified that are A, fairly common, and B, can be some of the most impactful mistakes made by shippers. These are not the only 5, however. There are many mistakes that shippers make, and we'll sort of list a few of those at the end of our discussion today, and then maybe we can queue up a subsequent conversation related to those. But these are some of the mistakes that we see probably most frequently, and again, these are some of the mistakes that tend to be most impactful, so we thought we'd start with these today. Just real quickly, things we'll talk about: discount tunnel vision, overlooked accessorial charges, dimensional weight pricing and the impact of dimensionalization. We'll talk about the concept of a pricing cliff. And then I think that the biggest mistake in terms of impact, or the biggest mistake in terms of a mistake that can lead to, leaving a lot of money on the table potentially, is the failure to involve competition. And we see it over and over again. So I wanted to make sure that we talked about that today as well. So let's start with the concept of discount tunnel vision. Shippers get, I think, understandably so, very focused on negotiating the best discounts, that they do so to a degree that they lose sight of other equally important aspects of a pricing agreement. And when you look at a pricing agreement, the discounts are the most visible. There are discounts on just about every page of a pricing agreement. Those are the aspects of a pricing agreement that lead to the easiest comparison between multiple agreements. They're the aspects of a pricing agreement that lead to the easiest comparison between UPS and FedEx. Those are the aspects of a pricing agreement that carrier reps tend to want shippers to focus on. So it's very easy to understand why shippers could sort of develop this type of tunnel vision. But other pricing aspects, such as minimum net charges, dimensional weight pricing, surcharge discounts, rate caps, so on and so forth, I could list out many more, for certain shippers can be just as important and just as impactful as discounts. So while discounts are important, they're not always the most important aspect of a pricing agreement. And just to give you an example, this graph shows the numbers related to or associated with the red bars show the contractual discounts that this shipper was able to negotiate. However, you'll notice the actual discounts are not keeping pace with the contractual discounts. So if this particular shipper happened to ship a lot of residential ground volume in the 0 to 5 pound range or 6 to 10 pound range, because they didn't negotiate aggressively enough on the minimums, you can see that they're not realizing anywhere near the contractual discount. So you start to get a feel for why maybe the contractual discount isn't the most important aspect of the pricing agreement for this particular shipper. And you can see that here. So ground residential at the top, 66% of their ground residential packages are hitting the minimum. 49% of their ground commercial packages are hitting the minimum. So for residential ground, that's 66% of the packages that are not realizing that discount that this shipper was so focused on. So, and again, minimum impact is just one example of this. It tends to be the example that we see most frequently, but there are many other aspects of a pricing agreement that shippers need to focus on beyond the discounts. Let's talk about overlooked accessorials. Accessorials and surcharges can make up as much as 40% or more of a shipper's total net spend. Shippers are often unaware of which accessorials and surcharges are most impactful to them, which is why the ability to do some analysis on your spend and your data is really important to all these concepts. Some accessorials have multiple subcategories. So a residential surcharge, for example, a delivery area surcharge, additional handling. There's subcategories for all those surcharges. So it's easy to focus on one or two of them and lose sight of the others, especially if the others are the ones that tend to be most impactful. Shippers can neglect to ensure that accessorial reductions apply to all packages. So ground, air, residential, commercial, inbound, outbound, etc. Again, they tend to get focused on negotiating discounts for ground, residential, outbound. They forget about some of the other categories that surcharge could be applied to. And again, it can be a significant percentage of the overall spend. So almost 60% of the charges in this particular shipper's invoice were related to surcharges. Almost 40% of the total net spend was related to surcharges. So a failure to account for all of those charges, a failure to account for the full 40% of the impact here can be very costly if you're not focused on the right things. And again, a real quick example of some analysis that we did, this particular shipper is showing in the data a 28.3% surcharge on, or discount on the residential surcharge. But in fact, they had negotiated a 50% discount. So the problem there is the 50% discount that they negotiated was focused on just ground. So just domestic ground. So express, air, some other categories of packages that may be receiving that residential surcharge. In this case, we're likely receiving no discount, thereby bringing down the effective discount to around 28%. Dimensional weight pricing, most shippers know what their packages weigh and they negotiate appropriately, but many shippers don't understand the impact of dimensional weight and dimensional weight pricing on their package weights. When negotiating weight-based discounts, shippers need to know the dimensionalized weight of their packages, not only the actual weight. Shippers must also understand dimensional weight calculations and what aspects of dimensional weight pricing can be negotiated. So if you don't understand how the carrier is calculating dimensional weight on your packages, and you don't understand your typical package dimensions, it's going to be impossible to negotiate appropriately. So analysis is the key. Understanding the impact, which pricing mechanisms in the contract can result in the most relief. Just some quick examples, a 12 by 12 by 12 5-pound package going to a zone 8. A next day shipment at a published divisor of 139 is going to get a published rate of 183 bucks. If you're able to reduce that to 166, you're at 164. So there's a little bit of savings there. However, if you're able to find a way to get that package to go at actual weight at 5 pounds, that's a 41% cost reduction versus the 139 divisor. Same way for ground. At 139, that ground package costs $22.05. Some relief at 166 gets you to 1978. But finding a way to get that package to go at actual weight results in a 32% cost reduction on that package. So again, understanding the impact of dimensional weight to your packages, understanding what sort of relief is available to you through the contract can result in really significant savings. Let's talk about the concept of a price cliff. So most carrier agreements are structured to incent volume growth and to penalize volume declines. But the pricing improvements for growth can be very minor as you grow into higher earned discount or portfolio tiers, while the pricing penalties for a declining volume can be very significant, very penal. So this is a retention strategy employed by the carriers, but it also applies when volume declines organically as well. So not only a situation where a carrier may move volume away from their primary carrier to a non-incumbent, but also COVID happens. Volume drops off the table. You stand to lose significant discounts as a result of that. And keeping in mind that the first tier in most contracts contains a 0% discount, as we see here. But this contract was structured for this shipper to be in this tier, this 5th tier. And you can see if they grow into higher tiers, there's no discount improvement or very minor discount improvements. However, if they drop, start to see some significant discount declines, and then they fall off a cliff. So this is this is a 7.5K spend decline from week to week, but there's almost a 15% discount reduction in that one category, 14% here. So that's what we mean when we talk about the concept of a pricing cliff. Last but not least, I think this is the biggest mistake that most shippers make, probably the most important thing for us to talk about. The most important aspect of a successful negotiation can be the ability to create maximum leverage. And the best way to do that is to involve multiple carriers. Failure to do so can result in the incumbent carrier feeling complacent. If they never feel a threat of diversion, they're unlikely to offer the best pricing. And we hear shippers all the time say, look, they know I'm not going anywhere. I realistically can't change carriers. My rep is a friend of mine. He's been my rep for 20 years, and I know he's looking out for me. No, he's not. Your rep does not have the shipper's best interest in mind. They have the carrier's best interest in mind, which is fine. But that's why you need to get them away from this feeling of complacency. So involve the competition regularly, even shift a small percentage of volume to them in order to keep them engaged, keep them thinking that they have a chance to win more. Include regionals, consolidators, the USPS. The easy way out of any negotiation is to negotiate only with the incumbent. Don't be lazy. Involving the competition can result in significantly more savings and can make for an easier transition to the non-incumbent carrier when necessary. A concept that is very important in 2020 and beyond as shippers start to look for carrier alternatives. And then real quickly, a couple others that we could have talked about today, maybe we'll queue these up for next time. Taking a piecemeal approach rather than negotiating the whole contract at the same time. Not accounting for GRI, not negotiating rate caps. Negotiating really strong concessions that are misplaced, that are in areas that you just don't need them, you're not going to benefit from them. Taking a disorganized or informal approach to the process. Get organized, get informal, formalize the process, you'll see greater results. Agreeing to unfavorable language or clauses. It's almost become the default position for some carriers. Go over the contract with a fine-tooth comb. Don't agree to any of this unfavorable language. And then lastly, don't start too late. Don't wait until the month that your contract expires. These take 3 to 6 months. Start the process to allow yourself for enough time to not feel pressured into agreeing to a new contract before the negotiation is done.